As we've been reporting, surcharges on electricity from Ontario, Canada took effect in 3 U.S. states Monday in response to planned tariffs from the Trump administration on Canada. Ontario provides electricity to Minnesota, New York, and Michigan. Now, electricity generators in the province are now required to add a 25% surcharge to all U.S. exports. Canada estimates the surcharge will affect 1.5 million Americans across the 3 states and generate between $300,000 and $400,000 a day. In a statement Monday, Ontario Premier Doug Ford wrote in part, quote, "The government will use every tool at its disposal to protect Ontario workers and families from President Trump's tariffs, including increasing the surcharge at any time or, if the U.S. escalates, cutting off electricity exports to the U.S. completely." For how this will specifically impact New York, Tim Knauss joins us now. He's a reporter for the Syracuse.com and the Post-Standard, a newspaper serving the greater Syracuse, New York area. Tim, thank you so much for being here. I've read a lot of your reporting, and, CBS News checked with major electricity providers and grids in those 3 states to gauge potential impact on consumers, as well as other places that might buy that energy. And they uniformly said that rate increases, if any, would be minimal. But what are you finding in your reporting?
Well, as you know, Premier Doug Ford estimated that it was going to cost affected households $100 a month extra, which in American currency would be $69. That seems like a lot, and we didn't really see how he was doing the math. I know they're saying it's 1.5 million customers. I'm not sure how they arrive at that. There's at least 8 million customers in New York alone. But at any rate, it is causing concern, and it's a hard thing to reliably predict because New York does rely on Canadian power, and it relies on it mostly during periods of high demand, like summer heat waves. And so it's not really a steady state of, they're delivering the same megawatts every day of the year. It really goes up and down, and the prices in the wholesale market do the same. So it's kind of hard to predict the effect on ratepayers. The thing that really, I think, concerns the grid operators in New York is how this might affect the system reliability, because Ontario and Quebec and New England and Pennsylvania all are intertied and send power back and forth to balance the system, to moderate prices. And to the extent that tariffs reduce that, that's where you really get into some concerns about the reliability of the grid.
Has there been any reaction from officials in New York?
Not that they've been willing to tell me. The grid operator, which is the New York Independent System Operator, has been largely silent. They did put out a statement saying that they are confident that they have adequate supplies for the foreseeable future. The governor's office has emphasized that she has good relationship with Doug Ford, but really hasn't said anything specific beyond that. And I really think they are just kind of scrambling to understand this and deal with it.
How could this impact New York's efforts to use clean energy and reduce greenhouse gas emissions?
Yeah. So right now, New York makes about 83 to 85% of its own electricity. The rest is imported. And the grid operator has been warning for years now that the state needs to build more generation, that as they look out into the decade ahead, that the reserve margin for emergencies or really high usage, that reserve margin is shrinking to unacceptable levels. And New York has embarked on a mission to have a net zero electric grid by 2040, which really means not adding plants that burn natural gas, but adding lots of wind and solar. And that has gone much slower than anybody had hoped for. So to answer your question more briefly, it doesn't bode well because both Quebec and Ontario provide pretty clean energy, mostly hydro and also nuclear. And so it's, if we start drawing less of that and more from Pennsylvania, the majority of their power is from fossil fuels.
All right. Well, Tim Knauss, thank you for your time.